You do a connection thing?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay.
Yeah?
I'm okay.
You're okay doesn't sound fantastic.
Well, I mean, we had a bit of a, this topic is very timely, I think, because, it was a bit of a tough weekend, and maybe we can talk a bit about that.
Yeah. What was tough about it, or how we made it tough? How we
Oh,
perceived
maybe.
it
Yes.
to be tough?
Maybe.
Well, the weekend is the weekend, right?
Yes.
What is going on inside that makes it seem as though it's tough, as opposed to making it seem as though it's going easier?
Yes, exactly. I'm just going to say hello to everyone in the chat, and then we can get...
Hello, everyone.
So, yes. Hi, everyone. It's Mondays with Tara and Andre.
Coming to you at Let's Talk Polyamory, and Monday morning, 11 o'clock. Here we are again.
Yes, we are. So, so we come here live every week at 11 a.m. And we broadcast to our Let's Talk Polyamory private Facebook group, sometimes to YouTube. I think we're on YouTube today, and to our Let's Talk Poly page. So welcome from all those places. If you're not in our Let's Talk Polyamory private Facebook group, you might want to join, because that's where all the videos and all the awesome content is. So
in the guides?
In the guides.
Still in the guides.
In the guides, yes.
For now.
Yes, for now. And there's actually some really great talks we did on a lot of the things we're talking about today, which have worksheets associated with them.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, stay tuned to the end, because we're going to give you a secret word to get your today's worksheet on how to make polyamory work long term.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, so that's today's topic. So
sounds like fun.
Yeah, so before we jump in, we want to ask you, do you think polyamory can work long term? So
long term. Well, what do you mean by long term?
Well, long term, longer than, I don't know what long term is. I mean, not like for a few dates, or not for the first year, or there's not a stopping point. Like, sorry, I got some. You get married or something like that. So that's what I mean.
Is it sustainable?
Is it sustainable? So put Y for yes if you think it can last longer term. N for no, and M for maybe or it depends. So drop that in the chat.
It depends.
M for maybe or it depends.
Yeah, it depends. But it's interesting because, what do we mean by long term? Because I'd never been in a relationship that lasted maybe more than 2 or 3 years.
Okay. So did you consider those long term?
Yeah, at times they seemed very long term. At times it did seem like it was long term.
Maybe because they were monogamous.
Maybe. And having to cheat my way through them and lie and deceive was taxing and made it seem longer. I'd never imagined I would be interested in like a 3, 4, 5, 7, 12, 25-year relationship. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, until now, I'd say. I think I always believed that relationships could last long term, but I didn't know about polyamory. So
it's interesting also. Relationships can last long term, but what about your presence, emotional presence in them? Are you still wanting to be in them? Are they of interest, or are you simply just going in and punching your card and just seeing, well, we're coming up on 5 years, we're coming up on 10 years, as though that's an achievement into itself. But are you still wanting to be there? Are you interested? Are you gratified? Are you satisfied? Are you longing to be in there? And what's your partner's place?
Yeah, and I think there are things you can do for that, and we're going to talk a bit about that.
Interesting.
And I see some yeses in the comments, so I love seeing that.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting because it's an interesting topic, because if you tell someone you're open or polyamorous or swinger or whatever sort of relationship dynamic you have in consensual non-monogamy, you get the phrase, you get people saying, is this a phase, or can it even last long term? Or
well, I've been told that already, like, it's just a phase you're going through and like you'll grow out of it, or tell me when you've grown up.
Yeah.
But it's just so damning and judgmental, right? It's like, okay, I get that you're not subscribing to my way of life, perhaps, but to infer that it is somehow immature, that I should not want to be subscribing to your model, seems intolerant, and that's unfortunate. I always say live and let love. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well,
maybe they'll grow out of it and come to our way.
That's the thing. I had a conversation with someone last week, who was struggling because they're at this decision point, or they feel like it's a decision point where they have to choose between non-monogamy and monogamy. And I thought it was interesting. Part of our conversation was, well, why is monogamy the default for people? It's like, and then this other thing is something that you chase after. It's kind of interesting. I would love for them both to be options, and people could decide what it is they wanted.
It's interesting, though, the idea of it, the default being monogamy. It's kind of like if you are not heterosexual, that you should be subscribing to that, right? So to the point where a lot of gay or lesbian people would even have a beard, right? Somebody who would act as their spouse or their partner in order to make them more valid, more accessible, right?
Yeah. Okay. So maybe you're asking yourself this question. Maybe it's not other people because you're in the middle of some sort of struggle or that sort of thing. So today we're going to talk to you, since it's our 5-year, we've just about the 5-year mark, 5 years and keeping it fun, as we say. We're going to give you the 5 key elements that have allowed us to navigate the up and down waves of consensual non-monogamy.
Yeah. And, just to announce it, very often people say, oh yeah, what you get on social media is just the polished effect of it, right? So, maybe people think that, wow, they've got it together for 5 years and it's perfect without blemishes. It's not the case at all. In fact, there are roadblocks that we are human like everybody else.
Yes.
And we're not saying that we've got the magic key to it without any exceptions, but we'll show you how we're able to overcome some of those roadblocks or bumps that we've gone to, and maybe it'll be effective for you as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the point. Any relationship requires some sort of work. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship. So let's start. So like I said, stay to the end because there's a cheat sheet so you can work through these 5 elements yourself.
Cool. I like cheats.
You like cheat or worksheet? I don't know.
Hacks,
okay.
Whatever you got.
Yeah. So let us know. I would love to know in the chat too how long you've been in polyamorous or non-monogamous and how it's going for you, and any of your hot tips. So these are our 5 main tips.
It just occurred to me, it's a very interesting idea. People who have been in it for some time, I wonder how they've seen it morph over the years. So if you've been in a polyamorous open relationship for 20 years, was it really taboo then? Was it spoken about as openly as it is today? Even now, Obama or, Oprah, whoever is talking about it where they may not have. So what was your experience been over that time?
Obama's talking about non-monogamy?
It just came to mind. Never mind. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But the idea that it has become more, part of our vernacular today, just about everybody has heard about it. It seems.
Yeah, no, I think more public figures like celebrities and stuff are starting to talk about it, like Will Smith's daughter and that.
Well, didn't we watch a movie the other day where it seemed as though they were in a polyamorous relationship?
But
right?
it was it was not really said.
No, it wasn't overtly said, but it was indicated. You could pick up on it. We picked up on it.
For sure. Of course,
and that was a movie that's in the theaters currently. So it is at the forefront now, where it may not have been years ago.
Exactly. So 5 key elements to lasting long term. So
the first one is the golden rule, right?
What is it? Well, before we give it away, I want to see if anyone in the chat can tell us what it is.
It's it's one word we say 3 times, right? And the answer to that is communication, communication, communication. Right?
Exactly.
It all starts with communication.
Yeah. Communication is the thing. I think as long as you keep talking, you can work things out. I mean, I think there's time and place for talking. Sometimes, someone got
Excellent.
it.
Yeah, we got a couple that got it. Excellent.
Yeah. I think there's a time and place sometimes for it, like timing, tone, and I forgot the third T. Anyways, there, turf.
So the time.
Yeah, the time, location. Finding an appropriate time to do it, the location, and being on neutral ground. Okay. So not just, you might not be trying to have a conversation in the middle of having sex, for example, although, some of us do that and we've certainly done it. Oh, yeah. And
well, it depends on what's being communicated, right? So if it's a big major issue that could possibly wait a little bit, maybe during sex isn't the time. But if somebody's doing something to you that you're not really so in favor of, or they're not doing something to you that you would like, maybe it is that time. But maybe it is often better to talk about it before we go into it or a little bit after we've gone into it, right? Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So communication is always number one. So it's actively communicating to active listening, communication where, and one of the things that we've talked about communication so many times, but so look back in the, archives of the guides. But one of the things we teach in our program and that we work with clients is a process called attunement communication, which is great and has been super effective in the people we've worked with. So it's a method of, which seems contrived at first when you start it, but it's a method of learning to communicate better and listen.
But it's amazing because, I would have imagined before any of this that I was a good communicator. I would have thought, oh yeah, of course, I speak, I listen. What more could there be to it? But when you really start to look into it, you might then be able to say, wow, yeah, you know what? Now that I think about it, I was not really listening to understand. I was listening to have my just basically have them stop talking so I could offer my rebuttal. And I'd already formulated my part of the argument, not really listening to what was being said to me. Now I've taken that awareness and I've translated it into how might I really be able to hear what they are saying, incorporate that, understand it, show them that I was understanding, and then go from that to the next one.
Yeah, I think part of the issue people have when communicating, and this is in any type of communication, even with parents and that sort of thing, is this layering effect, layering of multiple ideas, and then people get quite lost in the shuffle of that, and usually just hear and listen to the worst thing, and hold on to that.
So how might we avoid layering? What do we do as
well? Are you prompting me?
I'm trying.
I think we try to deal with one thing at a time,
okay.
one idea at a time, and make sure that you communicate that idea to the person you're wishing to speak to, and allow them the opportunity to repeat it back and tell you how it went.
A lot of that to me sounds like slowing it down, right? So you're not in a rush to get it all out. So slow it down. Make sure that you are being understood and make sure that you are understanding.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
So number one is communication. Number two, addressing feelings of jealousy and working towards security. So this is a big one.
It sure is.
I think a big hurdle that people have to go through in non-monogamous relationships. Melly, transparent.
Yeah, I love that THC. That's fantastic. Thank you, Melly.
Awesome. Honesty, communication, and compromise. Woohoo! Perfect. Yeah, those are all parts of it. Thanks, Melly.
For sure. So feelings of jealousy and insecurity, creating safe harbors and safe havens.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing, because some people will say, well, I'm not jealous, but often when you're in relationships with other people, multiple relationships, there's often one person that's feeling some sort of feeling. So if you're not feeling them yourself, you may be having to navigate other people's feelings.
For sure. And often we might not want to expose our feelings of vulnerability, right? So if I'm feeling jealous, maybe I don't want to reveal that. And I might kind of disguise it or try to disguise it, and it's not so apparent.
Yeah.
So can we look to find out, can we explore, can we ask our partners, do check-ins, find out how they're doing?
Yeah.
Participate in the communication.
Yeah, so recognize what are your own triggers and how you might move towards security. You might want to understand attachment styles, your own and those of your partners, because that can influence how you feel in that relationship.
Yeah, that's so important, right? Because not only do you come to have a better understanding of your own place, where you're coming from, but if you have an idea, if it's been communicated or shared with you where your partners are coming from, well, then it informs you in how you might approach them as well. How might we interact in a way that we do feel secure?
Exactly. And then the other thing, there's all kinds of things you can look into, but love languages is important as well. Like, how do you give and receive love? So if you're a person that gives and receives love through touch, but your partner needs words of affirmation, then those are things that it's important to know.
Right.
Yeah. So those are great things. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So perfect. And we've done talks on all these things. So have a look in the guides for those. So number three.
Being clear on what it is you're wanting, or what everyone's wanting, right? Because we're not alone in these polyamorous relationships. We have a partner or partners. So what is it that they're wanting more of or less of? And what are we wanting more of and less of? And again, comes back to number one, the communication of that, right? So how are we able to simply and concisely relate these ideas, these feelings, these things that we're wanting more of and less of?
Yeah, I'm just going to put up a little diagram that we've used before. This is from Jessica Fern's Polysecure, but there's kind of various things you can do in terms of what style of relationship you want. And I think it's important too, like these are words that are commonly thrown out there, but I think it's important to also know what everyone's definition of these words are.
Yeah, people often say, oh, I don't like to put a label on it. And we might not want to put labels either, but very often if we can use these describers, these labels, they might help us to inform each other as to what we mean by this. And then we can check in and like, well, what do you mean by monogamish? I mean, do we share the same definition or understanding of those words?
Yeah. Does that mean that when we go on vacation or trips or something like that, that we're allowed to have little dalliances or, you know, something, you know, what does that mean?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess then you're assuming that we're a couple going on this and we will have these times allotted for whatever it is. I was thinking about the other idea where we might be two solo partners getting together and acting as though we are kind of monogamish as a couple, because we're traveling together, we'll share a room together, and all of a sudden we have many of the trappings that look as though we are a monogamous couple, and yet we still have our own individualities wrapped in there.
See, that's interesting right there. So we you might have a different definition.
For sure. Perfect example, right? So we both say, oh yeah, I know what monogamous means, and yet we both have a different perspective too. So that's why it's so important that we do talk about these things and find out, are we on the same page about it? What's also interesting is when we find ourselves reluctant to speak about certain things. What's going on that I'm not feeling so comfortable to ask my partner about these things or bring up these subjects?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what's missing from this diagram, I'm thinking, is friends with benefits, which is a common thing. I mean, I guess it could fall into solo polyamory, but people might not use that term and might use friends with benefits instead. So that's interesting.
But it's interesting because FWB seems to have a certain connotation that many people seem to get turned off by it.
Oh, exactly. I think the first time I heard the term, I definitely was turned off by it. And, but others might have a very high esteem for friends with benefits.
Yeah. What do you think it was about it that turned you off?
Well, at the time I wasn't familiar with the concept, and I thought, this is long before you, when I met, one of my partners, and we started dating, and I thought we were sort of on the relationship escalator. We should talk about the relationship escalator in a second, but yeah. And then all of a sudden I did the like, what's going on with us? And they were like, friends with benefits. And I was like, what is that?
So it didn't match your expectations of what the relationship was at that time.
Yeah. Like I had this idea that we were sort of exclusive, but that was not the case.
So you had one idea of what the relationship was, and they had another idea of what it was. But what about your communication? Didn't you explain that? Didn't you explore that?
We did not. They didn't. We did not talk about it. So it was sort of like a, what do you call it when you just like leave out information? Like they didn't omission. They didn't tell me that they were seeing other people, but I never asked either. No. So that's part of the responsibility. I mean, I guess when I asked, I found out.
But see, it's interesting. They may not have offered that, right? There was an omission to it. But I wonder how they felt that they had to kind of guard or protect that information. What would have happened had they come out? Would they have thought that it would have been acceptable by you? So I often felt that, no, it wasn't going to be accepted by the other person, so I will downplay it or omit it or whatever it is. We didn't have those open communications. But yet, when I found a partner that I could speak openly and say, this is what I'm wanting, and they were saying, yes, that's what I want as well, I thought, wow, what a relief. There are people who share my desires, or I don't have to try and alter my way of being to conform to their ways of being. I could simply announce my way and let them make their decision whether they wanted to consent or not.
Yeah, and you recently actually spoke with someone that you've been talking with, and they talked about their dating, and then they had never heard of this. Like it was like they never heard of the idea, or maybe you should tell the story.
Well, very much you got it. Yeah, we were speaking after hockey, and I told them of our group, and they seemed a little bedazzled by it, and they said, well, we are polyamorous.
We are bedazzled.
And, we are doing this with full transparency. And they seemed a little bit taken back because their experience, as they told me later, was that they would never let any of their partners know about the other. So, they were playing a lot of dodgeball, and they thought, wow, what a fantastic idea that we could be open about this. It would relieve the taxation that they were putting upon themselves.
Yeah. So
we'll see how it works out for them.
Yeah. So part of this in knowing what everyone wants is creating a relationship blueprint. And you may have relationship blueprints depending on how many relationships you have.
And who's in it.
Because
you might have one style of relating, which is working for you and your partner and most partners, and then have another partner who's not wanting that.
Exactly.
So you have a different type of relationship with them.
Yeah. And then related to that is then creating your values-based agreements, relationship agreements.
Can you tell us just a little bit briefly about what
I will. It's part of our program, and it's something that we work with
VBA.
With people. Yes, the VBA. So basically, it's identifying what your values are for your relationship, and also, you do this for all your relationships, and then building agreement based on that. So, say for example, I always give this example, but say you value consideration. That's a high value in your relationship. We value consideration. You might do or say different things in order to sort of have that value be met. So for example, one of the things we do is the way we show consideration is if we're planning a date or something with someone, then we give the other person notice and let them know. And then also you make sure that there's not something else that's planned that we forgot about, so it's not asking permission, but rather considering how they might feel.
even things as simple as changing the sheets afterwards.
Yeah, that's another thing. That's important to us.
That's
changing. Yes.
Well, also, if you have a date, and we're going to have this place, if you have a date going on, do I leave my dirty socks and underwear on the floor, or do I pick it up? It's small little things like that, but they do add up because, you've got a date coming up, you're getting ready for that, and you look and you see the house is a disaster.
Yeah.
But I would consider that wonderful if you would look around and pick up the things as well, as you do. Yes. So we do that in consideration of each other. But it's small little things like that add up and give you the idea that you appreciate the other person that you are in these relationships with. Right?
Yeah, so your values-based agreement. So that's a part of our program, Open Relationship and Polyamory Mastery. I recently actually worked with a couple on this, and they did a great job. I'm actually going to use some of their examples. But after they did it, then they were like, oh yeah, now we have to let others know about what our agreement is, and then have agreements with them, because people have to consent to it. Like, it's so that you don't, if you are a couple, for example, that you're not exhibiting couples privilege.
Sure. But, would this fall into it then? So my latest recent date, one of our agreements that you and I have as each other's is that when we go out with somebody new, we have the conversation about STI testing and safe sex practices. And that is something, an agreement that we have. So when I meet somebody new, it's one of the first things we talk about, and we let them know that we're in this open relationship and that we have these certain things that we subscribe to. And where's it going with that? Okay.
Oh, that they have to consent to that as well, like getting tested or following the sexual practices. Is that what you were talking about?
I guess, but it was part of our value-based agreement, right? That we were, that these are things that are important to us, and we honor that when we go. Okay.
And we communicate that. Communication. See, it comes back to communication. That's what my client said to me the other day. Like, their aha moment of the day was like, yeah, it's all communication, really, when it comes down to it. Like developing an agreement, dealing with your jealousy, feeling more secure. Sure. And then our number 4, setting up regular reviews. That's basically about communication too.
Yeah, it's super important to do that. I think it's important to do that because if there are things that are not going as well as some of the other things, when will we ever get a chance to talk about that? How do I bring that up? I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable about it. I don't want to feel like a nag. I don't want to feel as though I'm rocking the boat. Things are going really well. I don't really want to make this disturbance. When would I get the opportunity to do this?
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've integrated kind of like quarterly reviews as if we were a small business, and we're already going to have this meeting in place. So it's not as though there's something that's bothering me, but this will be the venue where we will announce these things and we'll review things, the good and the bad. So how are we doing as far as our French kissing? Well, it's fallen off a little bit. We could increase that a little bit. How are we doing as far as our time together, or our
quality time,
consideration of others, all these things, and we will review these things. But having it already tabled invites us to this dialogue, right? Yes. So we can already start to review these things, find out what's doing well and what's doing less well, and go from there. Yeah,
and it's not to say that you would wait to let things for that review. If there's things that are urgent and stuff, obviously talk about it right away. But having a time when you can go and look at your relationship and what's working, relationships, and what's working and what's not is great. And one of the things you can look at is your relationship style. Like maybe as you're progressing along, you want to move to a different quadrant.
That's true too.
Of that.
We're plastic, right? We're always evolving.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay. So you were talking about some other things. You had some notes about, like part of your review and what sorts of things might come up.
Okay. So you spoke about our 5-year being together. What's changed over the 5 years? And one thing that came to mind was, what about aging? I'm 5 years older today than I was then. Doesn't seem like a lot, but you get to a certain age, you might start feeling differently about yourself, right? So, and I've heard this from many people. They talk about their decreased energy levels, their decreased desire for sex. Their libido has changed, perhaps.
Yeah.
They might feel physical changes, right? Maybe my knees aren't so good. That 3 hours in that same position might be a little bit more taxing.
My hip is still bothering me.
Right? Physical changes, real or perceived, right? Because sometimes we just imagine that is that, like this body dysmorphia. I look at myself and I say, oh my God, I'm not the way I used to be, or this thing or that thing, and it can take on a life of its own. So can we check ourselves and find out, is it accurate, or is it simply in my head feeling this way, right?
But I look at you and I think you're quite sexy. And I think people's experience of you is that you're a very sexy man, but you don't often see it.
No, it's an inside job, right? So whatever dialogue, internal dialogue I have going on is it simply going on in a loop, unchecked? Is there any way of checking whether or not those statements are valid? So can I announce my position? Can I say, I am concerned that I'm not as strong or as long-lasting or as hard as I might have been, or I'm not as wet as I used to get, or any of those things.
Yeah.
What happens if you announce it and start talking about it? Well, it goes back to the idea of communication, and we can either accept it or we can find out how we might be able to affect the change in it.
Yeah.
Either way, we'll have to communicate it. But those type of things are things that very often are not said, and we simply let those tapes roll on inside. They come to feed us. Our thought weaken us, not strengthen us.
Yeah, so I'm curious if people are experiencing any of these themselves, because I think it then makes you question, where you are in your relationship, or think something about it. Like we had this conversation, like we used to, we'll talk about what we did, but we used to do things like, have sex in the middle of the night, even having sex at night. It's not something that I really like before bed. It's like not something I don't necessarily desire, or I feel the urge to, I'm too tired or something like that. So there's things like that change. And then you can create a lot of meaning on that for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've done that myself. I'm actually doing a talk this Friday. Oh my God, this Friday. On confidence in the bedroom. And I felt my confidence wavering of late. And so we've been working on that. And so that's sort of some of the things I'm going to be talking about on Friday. So if you're in, it's a little plug, if you're in the Toronto area on Friday, November 18th, we have a great event. So let me know and I will send you the link to sign up. But yeah, you can lose your confidence as you age and that sort of thing. But I think part of it is being open to having the dialogue. And then, I think that might segue really well into number 5.
Yes.
Which is keeping it fun. Keeping it fun. Yeah.
How do you do that? Seriously, how do you keep it fun?
I don't know. I feel like you're always fun. I think introducing, making plans to do fun things or changing things up. Like last week, for example, we've been having a bit of a rough go. There's a lot of stuff going on with us. And I think it's affecting both of our psyche, I would say, in lots of ways. Sure. And so we did 2 dates out last week.
Yeah, we sure did. And they were very spontaneous, right?
Yeah, pretty spontaneous, but super fun. Like we went to, what did we do? We went to a movie, which is something we haven't done in like a long time. Yeah. And then
we went for dinner.
Yeah.
Two simple enough things, but I think symbolically it meant a lot, right? To break the routine and to go do these things outside of our normal thing. So finding new ways of adding some kind of stimuli.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was nice to get dressed up like the Tuesday, and we went on a Tuesday and got dressed up, went to a place here in Montreal, in the old Montreal. We walked down there, so there was a whole experience of that, and then having they have like a Taste of Montreal sort of thing, and listening to live music and eating and just enjoying each other's company and making it an event. You know what I mean?
Even the simple act of getting dressed up like that, because it makes me feel different about the way I hold myself when I do it. But then also, because I feel different inside, I'm showing something it's pleasing to you, I would imagine. And when you do that also, you're radiating this different effect. So it's wonderful, right? We get the benefits of both those things. It gets out of our regular routine.
Yeah.
It's the gesture of investment towards self and others.
Yeah.
I think it's
so we'd love to know any ideas, drop them in here to share with everybody on how you keep it fun.
Yeah.
We also had a really fun little date with a couple that we know.
We got dressed up for that as well.
We got dressed up for that.
We didn't know that we'd be the only ones dressed, but it was fun.
Well, they were dressed up too, but just in a different way.
Well, yeah, we were dressed up kind of fluid and kinky, kind of weird.
I think we surprised them, but we debated letting them know, and then we were like, "No, let's just go." And
they'll be dressed up too. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and they were, and they made us an amazing dinner, and we had such a fun time together. It was really nice because it's been a while since we did that. So,
well, because we've been doing other things, right? So I think that part of ourselves was maybe not quite neglected, but it was not prioritized, and this was important for us to go do this, to have some time together, free of all the considerations. Let's just go. And and it was really great, and they're like amazing humans. I'm so honored by the people that we have connections with, and and it's important to make connections in the community, and there's places to do that where you can do probably locally in your community. There's similar to BDSM, there's like munches and stuff like that. So have a look. If you don't know, let us know, and we can maybe see if we can connect you with somebody in your area. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really for me, very unique and special. Dating one-on-ones in the straight world, it was not having that same sense of community. You'd find community in other things. But in this, very often it feels as though, well, we identify as fellow pervs or something, and we come to it together, and it feels very inclusive quite often. So I think it's wonderful that we have that opportunity.
Yeah. We have a great comment here. I believe it can last long-term with communication and commitment. I've learned more about myself and being a healthy adult living in a polyamorous life. Yeah, I think I resonate with that a lot. I feel like I know myself a bit more in that sort of thing. And I was going to say, in terms of communities, if you do have a local community, let us know as well. I mean, you can drop it here in the chat or send us a DM, because we love to connect people who are interested in being connected. So keeping it fun, number 5. So today we gave you 5 key components to making long-term polyamorous relationships work.
Communication was number 1.
Yep. Addressing feelings of jealousy and increasing securities, number 2.
3 was being clear on what everyone wants.
Yes. Number 4 was setting up regular reviews.
And 5 is keeping it fun.
Keeping it fun. Exactly. So we know these things aren't easy. You know, we go back to them all the time, right? You know, and it might sound difficult, or you might be stuck and struggling in one of these areas right now, ready to throw in the towel on non-monogamy. I've certainly heard from people in the group that feel this way. So if you do feel this way and you need support, like, let us know. We've got you. We've always got you. So there's a couple of, I need the other one.
Okay.
Oh, someone said you're both incredible. Thank you. You're incredible too. Thank you for watching. So I'll put up, so we have our 16-week small group program, Open Relationship and Polyamory Mastery, starting this month, and includes all the things we talked about and more. There's 8 modules. We basically put the best of the best together for you. This slide shows an overview of the types of things that are included. But basically what we do is we guide you step by step through the exact process and system you need to have epic, open, and polyamorous relationships like yours, like ours. Yeah.
Yours will be.
Yours will be. So it's really, if you're really serious about creating deep connection, pleasure, and satisfaction in all your relationships, this is for you. Yeah. And so you can book a free call with us. Here's the link. We'll drop it here in the chat. If you want to just jump in and join the program, we'd love that. We do want to get started very soon. So there's the link to that. And the secret word this week is fun.
Oh, that's fun.
That's fun.
That is fun.
And we'll drop all these links. But yeah, and we have a little worksheet where you can work through all these things. And it also includes some resources and such. So
yeah, so just drop in fun.
Drop in fun. So what are we going to do to have fun? I think we're going to have fun tonight. We're seeing a friend. I'm making a tagine. Yeah, it's going to be great.
It will be great.
Yeah, so let us know what you're doing this week to have fun, and reach out if we can help you at all.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Monday. See you next Monday.